I will go ahead and get started with today's Lunch and Learn. Of all of the different challenges of the pandemic, one of the biggest is I find this few minutes right before the meeting starts. I mean, I think it's wonderful that we're all here to start the meeting, but normally we'd all be gabbing. We'd be, like it would actually be difficult to get everybody to quiet down. And I don't know, it's almost a little empty the way we start these meetings now. But fortunately, I think, this too shall pass at some point, and we will have that sense of camaraderie again. But in the meantime, I'm very glad for what we are able to do, which is to have events like these that celebrate the various different parts of our university, and specifically for alumni, tell them what's going on. Today, it is quite my honor to be helping talk specifically about the Eleanor Mann School of Nursing. I'll start a little bit personally. I have actually been very interested in nursing for about a decade or two at this point. This was not something new to me in this particular role that I just began about 18 months ago. At the University of Pittsburgh, where I was a faculty member, I became the assistant vice chancellor across the health sciences. So this is the mandate that I had, was to try to join medicine, public health, nursing, rehab, a bunch of different areas, all related to health sciences. And it was during that time that I really developed a special relationship with nursing. It led to annually, I would teach for them. Some of my very best mentees in research came from the School of Nursing. And so it's been an interest of mine for a long time. And it was one of the things that was very compelling to me about coming here to the University of Arkansas, where I could be related, not just to nursing overall, but to a really outstanding School of Nursing, as we're going to see later today. Nursing, for those of you who haven't thought about it too much, I mean, I see that many of you are from the School of Nursing, so this isn't going to be new to you. But if you're an alum and are interested, nursing is a very interesting field, because obviously there's a deep, it's deeply ingrained in hard science. So our students have to know science extremely well. But then they have to know something that is, I think, even more complicated, which is the science of human beings and the care of human beings. And to combine both of those in the way that they do is very, very challenging. And then add to that the fact that nursing is really a changing field. It's not what a lot of people think of traditionally. Nurses become the presidents of hospitals. They're very needed in terms of administration and economics around healthcare. They're involved in public health and prevention and education. We, for example, have a master's of science in nursing that is specifically in education. And one of our speakers that I'm about to introduce specifically went through that program herself. So the field of nursing is just a very, very dynamic and exciting and complex one. And we happen to have a very dynamic and exciting School of Nursing. We have 1,600 students involved in our school. And one of the things that I think is a testament to how exciting a unit they are is that they recently won the Dan Ferreter Award, which is the top education award for any unit at the entire university. So it's not just within our college, COEP, all of the other colleges are eligible as well. But this award went to our School of Nursing for excellence, for innovation in many different things. So one of the core things about this award is that it's about student success. Are these students getting a great experience? Are they doing well? And our students are doing extremely well. They have very, very high pass rates. They really enjoy their time as well. They're very, very prepared for any of those careers that I just mentioned. But at the same time, they're getting all of that stuff done while also being very, very connected to the community. So a perfect example of that is something that we're going to hear about later today, how our School of Nursing has been responding to the COVID crisis in a very positive and community-focused way. It's our faculty and administration that have been guiding that, but it's also a lot of students. And so we're going to get to hear more about that later. The Dan Ferreter Award is also about faculty development. And again, this is an area where our School of Nursing really stands apart. We have had some really exciting movement in terms of faculty growing and changing administratively, educationally, and in terms of research. Some of you may know that one of our young faculty members, Ting Ting Lu, just won a very big and prestigious National Institutes of Health grant. Michelle Kilmer is starting the process of looking into, I hope it's okay I mentioned that, Michelle, but I've been looking at some of her aims, and it's a very exciting proposal that deals with what health services research that the nursing school is involved in. This award is also about innovation, and you're going to hear later on from Tabitha Teal about how innovative, for example, our simulation lab is. Not all schools of nursing or schools of medicine or any health science have these kinds of facilities. And speaking of facilities, I just want to call out in particular and thank publicly Dr. Lewis Epley and Donna Epley, who I see are here today, for this incredibly beautiful and functional space that they have given to the nursing school, because it is this kind of thing that enables us to do all of those things that you've heard about just now for students, for the community, and for the faculty. So thank you, Dr. Epley and Ms. Donna Epley. Another thing that I just want to mention about the nursing school, and then I'll go ahead and introduce Hillary Bowling to get us started, is the online programs that we have. She's going to be able to tell you a lot more about those. But these programs are very innovative and very critical to our population. Our students can get a doctor of nursing practice. They can get a nurse practitioner degree and go ahead and hang a shingle completely online. And they're able to do that in a way that is very, very academically rigorous, but it enables that for people that just are not able to leave their community. A lot of people, for personal and professional reasons, they just can't come to Fayetteville for 3 years from Crossett, from Mina, from El Dorado, from Helena. And so we are giving people the opportunity to do that, but in a way that does not compromise educational rigor in any way. So, so Hillary will tell us all about it. By way of introducing Hillary, I'll say that she is a two-time degree earner from the University of Arkansas. She did her Bachelor's of Science in Nursing, as well as her Master's of Science in Nursing, specifically on the education track that I mentioned before. And then Dr. Bowling got her doctorate at the University of Pittsburgh, which I hear has a pretty good nursing school. And for those of you who missed it, I was at Pitt for 20 years before this. And I worked with the nursing school a lot, and I'm a big fan of theirs as well. And so in any case, but then we were very fortunate to get her back here in Arkansas. She did a focus on executive leadership, and she has really been taking that leadership to the next level here. She's been with EMSON for 6 years now. For almost 3, she's been coordinating our online Bachelor's of Science in Nursing programs and doing a really tremendous job with that. And so with that introduction, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Bowling to tell us a little bit more about our online programs.
Thank you, Dean Primack. I appreciate that introduction. So I'm excited to be here today to talk to you all about our online programs, specifically about our undergraduate programs. Like he mentioned, we do have a doctorate in nursing practice. We also have the master's nurse educator. Those are also online tracks and are serving our communities. The undergraduate programs that I coordinate really has been able to feed my passion for online education. I feel like education should be accessible to everyone. You know, anybody that has that desire in their heart to further their education and better themselves should be able to do that. And it should be accessible without, like he said, without them having to move and to relocate to do so. We have two options now in our undergraduate in our BSN program. We have an RN to BSN, which we have had now online since 2012. It's been very successful. This is for nurses that have an associate's degree or even a diploma in nursing. We have nurses that are brand new to the field. We have nurses that have been out of school for 20, 25 years even, that come back to get their bachelor's degree. So they can enter back in, get their bachelor's degree. It helps to open doors for them. They may be doing this for the sake of promotion in the facilities that they're currently in. They may be seeking opportunities that allow them to work at more prestigious facilities, organizations like magnet hospitals that do require that BSN for an entry-level nurse. Or they could just be doing it because it's a bucket list item. We get that too. So then a couple of years ago, we really started to look at our programs in our undergraduate and thought, how can we be more accessible? How can we provide this level of education for more people? How can we better serve our community? How can we better serve our state? And what we found in this look, we talked to a lot of nurses, we talked to a lot of community partners, and what we found is that in our state alone, we have over 15,000. And of course, this was a number from a couple of years ago, maybe more now, but we have 15,000 LPNs. These are licensed practical nurses, which is a level below a registered nurse. That could be a technical school. Some community colleges offer LPN programs. We had a track in our face-to-face program for LPNs to come in and progress to a BSN level. What we found is that it was very underutilized. It was really only serving our local LPNs, and we wanted to be able to expand that. In these conversations, we found out that these LPNs, you know, the biggest thing is that they cannot stop working. They really need to work and provide for their families, working full-time. It could be that they work full-time Monday through Friday, and coming to an on-campus program was just not in the cards for them. So fortunately, with the support of our director, Dr. Patton, in our college, we were able to take that track and change it to an online format that has really become very exciting. We have, you know, we started out in the fall of 19. We were able to start with a small cohort of around 25. The next semester that grew to 50. And then this semester that grew to over 100. We have more than 200 students that are also in a pre-nursing status for this program. They're completing prerequisites so that they can qualify for the admission. So it's grown quite a bit. And, you know, this has been, it's a preceptor model. So there are many benefits to the nurse. We use a preceptor model. This allows that nurse to learn and grow professionally in their geographic area. It helps them to grow in their own workplace. It also helps them to kind of see what other opportunities might be available in their area for them. So there's a great benefit to the nurse to be able to continue working, continue providing for their family while furthering their education and having the flexibility to do both. You know, there's also great benefit for our community partners. You know, we see a lot of vacancy in nursing. You know, there's open spots at nearly every facility that you walk into of nursing spots that are not filled. So these organizations that open their doors to these students to allow them to complete their preceptorships there, they're getting to share what they have to offer as a potential employer. So we see that this is really a twofold benefit. The nurse is getting what they need, the organization is going to be able to get what they need, and it's really a great partnership that we have discovered, and it's going very well. With the pandemic, we didn't know how that was going to play into these online programs. You know, it could have gone either way. We could have seen a decrease in enrollment and admission, or we could have seen an increase. And what we found was that we had more interest. You know, I commonly get the statement from students, you know, with this pandemic, I want to be able to do more. I want to be able to know more and to better serve my communities and my state. And it's been really exciting. And I think we all feel very blessed to get to do that. And I think that their desire to continue to further their education speaks very well to the core values of our profession. So thank you, Dean Primack, for letting me talk about our online programs.
Great, just unmuting myself before I introduce Lindsay Sabatini. So Lindsay is an extremely lauded instructor. You will see she has a magnetic presence, and she is just beloved by her students. And so we were very lucky when she agreed to become the interim assistant director at the School of Nursing just recently. And she has really taken that role to the next level as well. And it's not a surprise because she has graduated with all of her degrees from the University of Arkansas, her bachelor's, her master's, and her doctorate. She began teaching for us in 2008, but then she's been faculty since 2012. So coming into this leadership role now was, I think, exactly the right time for her to move to the next level. And as I say, she has really embraced it. Lindsay is going to tell us a little bit more about what we've been talking about, how the students have been working in the community, not just as part of their usual, which they're always working in the community as part of their regular programs, but how they've really been stepping up in a big way, just like we heard Dr. Bowling talk about. So Dr. Sabatini.
Thank you so much. It's good to see everybody today. So I just wanted to start talking first just about the big transition that we all had, March of last year when we got the information, the email that we were going to be virtual for the rest of the semester. It was a big transition for us as faculty. It was a very big transition for our students. But we had students that were in the homeless shelters doing their clinicals, and they still wanted to help. They were able to get foot supplies donated for that population because they weren't going to be able to be there with their hands on them. We were able to donate a lot of our supplies that we were not going to be able or not have to use on campus for the remainder of the spring semester to our local hospitals. We all know there was a very big shortage in a lot of the protective equipment, and we had some of those supplies that we could donate. We also were able to donate a couple of our big pieces of equipment. We had a couple of ventilators that we were using in our simulation labs. And since we were not going to need those for the moment being, we were able to give those to a local hospital to use during this time. They still have that because we feel like this is possibly the time right now where they're going to need them the most. But they were able to take those and get them, utilized within their facilities. And then over the summer, most of our, students were not in class and clinical. There were a few, and we remained virtual throughout the summer. However, there were multiple students that were able to go get jobs in the COVID units. They were doing contact tracing for one of the local, very large companies in Northwest Arkansas. They were able to, work in the COVID units, also the COVID screening centers. That was a very important role and new to our area, obviously. We were able to do that. And then as we transition this fall back to some hands-on clinical, our clinical partners were amazing in trying to figure out how we can do this safely, how we can get the students their hands-on. The students have been able to get quite a few clinical hours hands-on, whether that's simulation, which Dr. Teal will talk about. We've been so grateful for that, or time in the hospital. We've also remained some clinical hours virtual, but these students are so eager to learn. They want to get their hands on. They want to be able to take care of patients. They have helped. They've given thousands of flu shots this semester. We've done the drive-through clinics at Pat Walker on campus. We've done hospital flu clinics. They have been so eager. Our community students went through the contact tracing training from Johns Hopkins to be able to be proficient in that area. So we have just been able to do so many things for our community. We've done diaper drives. We've done, you name it. Our students are so eager to help. as much as we can and as much as they can. They're not registered yet, but that doesn't mean they can't do a lot of these things, and they are jumping right in all over the community to do so.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Sabatini. And next, I would like to introduce Dr. Tabitha Teal. So Tabitha is in some ways, kind of the poster child of our college, in the sense that she really has studied and works in different areas that the college represents. We have a very big and broad college that it represents education and educational theory, as well as nursing and occupational therapy and public health, et cetera, et cetera. And Dr. Teal has worked across many of these different areas to great benefit of our program and our students. So she finished nursing school in 2006 and got a lot of clinical experience after that. She worked in surgery, she worked in school nursing. So there you can see a little bit of that overlap. But then she took a full-time faculty position at Eleanor Mann in 2014. And she was really able to bring some of her interests in education as well as her clinical nursing role together. She was able to introduce a lot of educational rigor. And most recently, she actually converted that into a doctorate from our curriculum and instruction area in the education side of the college. And a lot of the work that she did there was how to introduce and perfect our simulation laboratories. And she's been head of the simulation laboratories since 2018. And she's going to now tell you a lot more about particularly what it is that we do there and why this is beneficial to the students. But what I'd like to focus on is how it's so great that we have somebody who truly has that hands-on clinical experience in nursing, as well as the educational expertise that she has. And that's the kind of thing that leads to things like this Ferreter Award that demonstrates how we're able to integrate excellent education into great clinical experiences. Dr. Teal.
Well, thank you for that. I hope that I can live up to what you've just said about me, because I'm sitting here thinking, well, who's he talking about? That can't be me. But yes, I did live through all of that stuff. So since I am over simulation and a lot of the technology here for the department, I thought, well, why not prepare a PowerPoint so you guys who have not been to our campus can see some of the unique equipment that we have and the tools that we have to educate our students. So I asked this morning if I could be able to share my screen, and they said yes. So we're going to try that and see if it works. I hope it works. So Hillary, I got you on my screen. Give me a thumbs up. Can you see the PowerPoint? All right, thank you very much. Okay, so this was actually part of a presentation that I was supposed to have given in April when we hosted a simulation conference here, but COVID shut that down. So I was like, well, hey, this is how I can get this information out. So I was able to reuse a little bit of this. So how do we keep our students engaged? Most people, when you bring up simulation, they only think of mannequins. They do not realize that the field of simulation has greatly expanded over the past 2 or 3 decades. But even most recently with COVID, with many schools having to go virtual, simulations were at the forefront of how can we bring this to our classrooms, keep them online, but keep our students engaged. So we, of course, started out with mannequin-based simulation, and these are just a couple of pictures. The picture on the left is our Apollo mannequin, and we have several of those throughout the building. The picture on our right is one of our newest mannequins. We have actually 3 new high fidelity mannequins this year. One of them is in a sim lab and 2 of them are in skills labs. So we've converted our classrooms downstairs into skills labs. We've been very fortunate to take an advantage out of the COVID dilemma, sending us all home. We were actually able to convert our 2 huge classrooms into skills labs and bring technology to those skills labs so the students can get even more hands-on experience down there and preparing for their hospital visits. So the one on the right, this is our baby Luna, and she is capable of doing lots of fascinating things. She can move her arms independently. She is not tethered, so she is not connected by any cords or suitcases. The students are able to pick her up, turn her over, do their assessments a lot easier. She can have seizures. She will turn blue. She has a lot of high functioning capabilities. So we're very fortunate and very lucky to be able to bring the highest of standards to our students here in EMSON. And that's just one example. We've also branched out into tabletop simulations. So these are board games. They are also case studies that you can develop into tabletop activities. And basically any activity you have that you can do a pre-brief and a debrief, you can turn that into a simulation and write objectives to meet your students' needs. So Friday Night at the ER is a board game that we purchased a couple of semesters ago. Unfortunately, it's boxed up right now and we can't get together due to social distancing, but we're hoping that we can get back together to this soon, because this is a way that we can conduct simulation in a large group. Each of these board games can play with 4 students at a time, and we actually have ran 24 students at once. And it's great to have all 24 come together and then talk about the activities that they've gone through and share those experiences. It really brings learning to the next level when we can bring across the cohorts. We also have virtual reality. So this is our software that we're using through Embodied Labs, and the students can wear this virtual headset and experience what the patient is experiencing firsthand. So this video that you see here on the left, this is one of macular degeneration. And as you can see, the person is holding up their hands. Those are actually their hands on the screen. So it's interactive and they will experience the central vision loss. And we have some on dementia and some on Parkinson's. And we have several different cases that the students have loved them. They said they're very beneficial. It's made them think about how they should approach those patients differently, because now they've been able to experience what they're going through. We also have augmented reality, and this is again another headset based, and we can actually look inside the body. So we have a couple of our high fidelity simulators that have the capability of sharing this. One of us is our birthing simulator. So if you put on the headset, you can actually look into that mannequin and see what is going on with the baby. This is an example of the cardiac with our Aries mannequin. He's a moderate fidelity. So you can actually, as this picture shows, separate everything out from skeleton to muscles to organs to the vascular system. And we can make the scenario run as if they're having a heart attack. So the patients can see how the pathology changes. We can infuse medications so they can see how the body responds. So this gives them a great inside view in addition to performing the outside care. We also have virtual simulation. Like many schools, when we all closed in March and went online, we had to find a way to continue our students' learning. So we were fortunate enough that the simulation community was willing and able to share all of their resources. So we picked up some great virtual simulations from Canada and some from the Alliance California that we were able to incorporate into our Blackboard classes and allow our students to continue getting simulation experience through virtual realities. And we use these in med-surg, OB, pediatrics, and we use them in critical care in the spring as well. And we're continuing on with that this fall. The students have had such a great response to it that we felt this was a great way to even add more learning to their clinical hours. Escape rooms. We know all younger people love escape rooms, and that is the direction that simulation is heading into. So we actually created a simulation based on one that I learned at a conference. And so we've used those in simulation as well. We turned it into a competition to see who could save the patient the fastest. And of course, anytime there's a little competition involved, our nursing students are going to rise to the challenge. And so they've loved the escape rooms. And then lastly, we have simulated patients and telehealth. So telehealth is something that we thought was very appropriate with the pandemic going on right now. So we developed a telehealth scenario this semester for our foundation students. And we gave them the background on the patient, and we allowed them to call in to their patient via Zoom and perform an assessment and collect information from them. And provide some education and teaching on how they need to manage their comorbidities. And the students loved it. They said it was a great icebreaker. It was a great introduction to simulation. And we're very fortunate to be able to try out these opportunities. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Teal. Okay, I would like to now, yeah, so very impressive. And I think that I'm glad you showed slides, because that, I think, really brings to life what it's like. And it's hard to imagine when you don't actually see and experience what the students are experiencing. So I'd like now to introduce Dr. Susan Patton. And Dr. Patton is the director of the Eleanor Mann School of Nursing, and truly a remarkable leader and individual. So she has had a lot of clinical experience in nursing. She's a licensed advanced practice registered nurse. She's a clinical nurse specialist, but she has moved forward in many different directions since that time. She has a doctorate from our community health promotion area. She has a master's degree in health services administration, and she truly has done all of these things. So in the administrative area, as an example, she was chief operating officer for the Austin, Texas regional clinic, which involved literally thousands of FTEs of individuals. And that's the kind of administrator that we have in charge of our, our nursing school. She's also done substantial research that has been impactful, relating to a big cause of morbidity and mortality, fall injuries among the elderly. But I think most impressive is when the rubber meets the road, what she's really been able to do for us during her leadership. She was brought on as interim director of the School of Nursing, but then became the permanent director of the School of Nursing because of just how impressive she's been in terms of education, in terms of research, and in terms of being a real student advocate. So just as an example, when COVID hit, it wasn't, she makes it look easy. She was able to, form all these partnerships with hospitals and get students, what they needed. But, think about it for a second. We had over 100 students at that point who literally were not going to graduate if we couldn't be creative with how they got their clinical experience. And so Dr. Patton, this is one of those examples of where she went above and beyond and made absolutely sure that every single one of those people graduated. It is her calm, her incredibly supportive manner, the way she balances that with a remarkable leadership that just makes me very, very proud to have her as the director of EMSON and to introduce her today. So Dr. Patton.
Thank you, Dr. Primack. Those were very nice words. I think it's probably obvious to everybody that with such impressive faculty and great students that we have here at Eleanor Mann, that this has to be the best job in the world. And probably my favorite thing that I get to do in this job is talk to alumni. So, whether I'm giving them advice about the next step in their career, writing them a letter of recommendation, or like Debbie Cataldo called me a couple of weeks ago to interview me for an assignment she had in her program. Just seeing what they're doing after they graduate from our program is the most rewarding thing ever. And I tell people there's so many things you can do in the nursing career, but teaching has to be the most rewarding, because where else are you going to touch so many different lives? So I have 4 alumni here today. They've graciously agreed to talk to us a little bit about how the Eleanor Mann School of Nursing has impacted their life and what they're currently doing. So I'm just going to introduce each one of them one by one and have them tell us when they graduated and what they're currently doing. So I'll start with you, Emily.
All right, thank you so much for having me today. As Dr. Patton mentioned, my name's Emily Imhoff, and I graduated from the University of Arkansas with my BSN in 2016. And I began my nursing career in the medical surgical ICU at Mercy Hospital in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And then I continued on to the cardiac intensive care unit at Barnes Jewish Hospital in St. Louis, Missouri. And in the fall of 2018, I actually went back to school to begin my training through Goldfarb School of Nursing in St. Louis, Missouri, through the Washington University Department of Anesthesiology to become a certified registered nurse anesthetist. And I will graduate this December and begin my career as a CRNA at UT Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas, Texas. So.
Thank you, Emily. So Leah, I'll move on to you.
Okay, sorry, I had to keep it muted. I have kids and I don't want anyone to hear a Frozen soundtrack. I graduated in 2013 with my BSN from the University of Arkansas. I'm currently back at the University of Arkansas for my DNP. I started my career in New Jersey as a labor and delivery nurse. And I ended up doing an ICU residency in Dallas, Texas. And then I am now in Kansas City, Missouri. And I was an ICU float pool nurse, but with the pandemic going on, I am a dedicated COVID nurse at the moment.
Thank you, Leah. And I'll be back to ask you more questions about that. Debbie.
Hi, like Dr. Patton said, my name's Debbie. I graduated from University of Arkansas in 2015, and then I started my career in Austin, Texas at Seton Family of Hospitals. I started on the floor, and then I also did an ICU fellowship. So I've been in the surgical trauma ICU since, and I currently work at the University of Colorado Hospital on the Anschutz Medical Campus, and I'm also in graduate school there. I'm going for my nurse practitioner degree. So I'm about a year in now.
Okay, and Kelly?
Hi, everyone. Like Dr. Patton said, I'm Kelly Ballman, and I graduated with Debbie actually in 2015 with my BSN from EMSON. And after graduation, I moved to Atlanta and started my job as a pediatric cardiac ICU nurse, taking care of little babies and toddlers that have had to have heart surgeries for various heart defects. And I did that for a handful of years before making my way up to Children's National in DC, where I did the same thing, and then Cincinnati Children's, where I did the same thing as well. And then most recently now I work full-time for Duke with their Lifelight program, doing neonatal and pediatric critical care transport on ground and helicopters.
Okay, so a lot of our graduates, of course, stay here in Northwest Arkansas and other areas around Arkansas, like Little Rock. But as you see, many of them go off all over the country. And, you know, really, EMSON is really represented, I think, in almost every state. And that, I think, is very impressive. But also, a lot of these students come back. So we see Leah already coming back in our DNP program. And Emily is interested. And Emily, you'll be glad to know that I was successful in getting that GRE requirement suspended. So I know that's been a big barrier sometimes for students. So we hope to see you back there. But one thing I would like to ask all four of you, because our current students are a little bit nervous. They feel like they're not getting the hands-on clinical experience like you got when you were in the program, because it is somewhat restricted. The hospitals really aren't comfortable just letting us, you know, go in as fully as we used to. So it's probably about half. And of course, the nursing homes where we got a lot of our clinical training are not allowing visitors, including students at all. So we have spent a lot of time really focusing on critical thinking skills in hopes that, you know, they will be able to transition pretty quickly with their hands-on skills. So what advice would you give them? What do you think about what you learned after you graduated and how you transitioned into the role of a registered nurse. So I'll start with you, Emily.
Yeah, so just like reflecting back on where I was at, and the training we had in clinicals was excellent, and I can only imagine the barriers they're having now, because I similarly had a period of time where we were, in my current training, not allowed to enter the operating rooms because of lack of PPE. So when I think about my undergrad training and this training, I think what's so foundational is to have, there's nothing that can overcome, that cannot overcome a heavy book knowledge. So if you know all your key principles, and then you're able to go in even after your graduation and learn from a senior nurse, having those root principles already in your mind, you know the proper thinking paths and how to approach a patient, then adapting in that clinical environment to touch a patient and care for a patient and have those empathetic skills, the book knowledge is there, and then you're just applying it to practice. So I think that if they're focusing on their didactic learning, that clinical will just come naturally if they have that solid foundation.
Okay, great. That's great advice. And Leah, you are really involved now in taking care of COVID patients. And so many times I hear nurses saying that with the pandemic, we've had to relearn a lot. There's just so much that we didn't know. And like every day is a learning experience. So can you talk about that a little bit?
So I wanted to mention something Emily said about book knowledge and what I learned at EMSON. These nursing interventions and this evidence-based practice that's so strong at EMSON has helped me so much. And it's helping my patients a lot too, because recently remdesivir and convalescent plasma have been proven almost ineffective. So all we have right now are actually nursing interventions, laying our patients prone, managing drips that doctors don't check on over the night, nurse practitioners don't check on, that we're managing ourselves. We're realizing a lot of these COVID patients are having insulin and glucose issues that are extremely life-threatening. So we are specifically relying on nursing interventions. These are the only things that we have is evidence-based practice. Yeah, every day is something different. There are things that I would do in March that I would never do for a COVID patient now. There's a lot of things that we did in March that are at times you look back as regretful, or things that we learned from, but it was everything that, it was all we had known before. And COVID's such a novel virus that we're struggling coming up with new interventions that'll help because it goes against a lot of things we know, especially things with intubation.
Okay.
But EMSON definitely prepared me for all of this. I'm very thankful for that education.
That's good to hear. And Debbie, I know you also are taking care of COVID patients. So what have you learned from that experience?
Yeah, so my background's primarily in trauma. Like I said, taking care of a COVID patient is pretty much the opposite of a trauma patient for the most part, and how we manage their care. And I really agree with Leah and Emily in the needing to have didactic knowledge so you can apply it when you're at the bedside. I don't think that can be understated. And then I think also something that I didn't appreciate my undergraduate degree until I got into the nursing world myself was the emphasis on flexibility. And EMSON, as we're seeing, just being adaptable and changing as medicine changes. Because I went from being a trauma nurse overnight to being a COVID nurse, which is just so different. But I was prepared because I've known since the day one of nursing school, that you have to be flexible and you also have to just jump in. I orient a lot of new grads on my unit. And the thing that makes them most successful is just jumping in and being adaptable.
So that reminds me of Dr. Primack actually reminded me of an old saying the other day that half of what we teach you is wrong, but we don't know which half it is. And that's medicine, you know, it changes every day. And so hopefully what you got from EMSON was a love of learning, because that is what you're faced with on a daily basis. So Kelly, can you tell us how that's been for you, how you transitioned from the hospital environment to now the transporting of critically ill patients? How has your love for learning helped you through these transitions?
Yeah, so it is definitely wildly different from being in the hospital. And I think this goes back to probably what a lot of these students are experiencing, in that I'm in situations that I have never been in before. And I haven't been able to receive throughout all my training as much hands-on practice as I have in the past. So it's all about, to me, it always ends up coming back to the basics, which I feel like is like one of the biggest takeaways from nursing school is, in addition to all of that didactic knowledge, I've had to really focus and remember my, incredible assessment skills that I know I have, and kind of take those basics of getting patient histories, doing assessments, all of the stuff that I learned how to do in nursing school, and that can be applied anywhere. So, while I may be in situations that I'm having to rely a lot more heavily on simulation, which is incredible, the advancements that have happened in that whole realm, it's really been just awesome to apply what I've learned all the way back in nursing school to see how I still apply those strong foundational skills now to help you be successful in kind of a different realm. And especially with all the COVID stuff, there's so much uncertainty everywhere. And to kind of top it all off, like, we'll go pick up a patient sometime and we have no idea what their COVID status is, if they've been exposed, but you really kind of can't figure that out if you landed on an interstate and are, picking someone up from a car wreck. You just have to kind of utilize the best knowledge that you have and apply it in a way that is what you know how to do.
Okay, so lastly, what I would like to ask the four of you, hopefully one of the things I think is really important in the culture of our nursing school is just this desire for constant improvement, and always looking at our customers, which are our students, and getting ideas from them, people that are on the ground, about how we might improve. So thinking back on your program and your first years as a nurse, are there ideas that you have that you could give us that would help us? And we know that we have great faculty and we have great students, but just the whole culture of, we can always be better. So I'll start with you, Emily.
Okay, so I mean, first and foremost, I think EMSON does an incredible job of instilling that lifelong learner mentality into all of its students. And I honestly think that the lifelong learning and scholarly pursuit, in addition to the holistic nursing and empathetic care that you guys teach, are my two main takeaways for what has been most impactful in my life. Because currently in the career I'm choosing as a nurse anesthetist, oftentimes the patient is, your patient is, you're the last person they see before they go up to sleep, and you're the first person they see when they wake up. And so being able to establish that trust and rapport in the perioperative period, and ensuring that you're going to provide their safety and comfort throughout the training that you've received, is something that is so imperative to me, and something I'm so grateful that EMSON really just laid that foundational work for me, so that I can just continue to build on it throughout my career. And so, yeah, it's along the lines of continuing to improve yourself so that your patients have better care. EMSON did an incredible job instilling in me how to critically appraise evidence, how to look at clinical problems and look at the evidence surrounding those issues, and then apply what we learned to change our current practice. Because it's always about improving care for our patients, because you're not only caring for them, you're caring for their family and everyone else who's involved with them. And so I think the heart of the nurse is something I'm so grateful EMSON taught me, and is something I'm so proud of in this profession. So I think EMSON does an incredible job with that lifelong learner mentality, and it is evidenced by all of the alumni here today who have gone back and pursued more education so that they can be the best practitioner that they can be.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you, Emily. Leah, what would you say?
So I'm very thankful for everything EMSON has given me, especially the basis of evidence-based practice and nursing interventions. I work night shift and I will always work night shift. So I just think that maybe including some exposure to students to that night shift mentality, the night shift, your daily activity or nightly activities of a night shift work is really important. It's different than the day shift. It has different expectations and you keep the ball rolling for day shift. And it gives you a time to think and really go over physician notes and nurse practitioner notes. So I feel like exposure to that as a student would be very helpful. And that's just coming from somebody who's very, very partial to night shift. So
that's a great idea. Thank you so much, Leah. Well, I hope Lindsay's writing this down. Okay, Debbie.
So I'm currently in graduate school now, and I am so incredibly thankful for EMSON's emphasis on evidence-based practice and understanding why we do what we do, and evaluating the research and the studies behind that. I use that in my daily practice as well. I'm pretty involved in my unit in implementing evidence-based practice there. I am very inspired by the professors here and the alumni here and hearing what they've done with their practice and how they've expanded the nursing, how we do things and why we do things. So I think just continuing to reinforce that to students and teaching them how to gather the research, how to look at evidence, how to apply what we find from the best studies in their practice. I'm just really grateful for that and hope that that continues passing on to students, which I'm sure it will, given all of the alumni here.
Thanks, Debbie. And Kelly?
Yeah, so one of honestly the most rewarding parts about my time at EMSON has been the community that I have developed and maintained throughout my time as a professional nurse. I actually still talk pretty frequently with a lot of girls that were in my clinical group, and we talk back and forth about how we're handling different things at work or what we're struggling with or what is your facility doing that we could do different, kind of just networking and developing those professional connections that like started at EMSON has just been phenomenal. And I almost wonder, I feel like how EMSON played out for me is I graduated with the ability and desire to become a leader in whatever type of unit or area or hospital I have worked in. And I wonder if there's any way to bring that a little bit more into the curriculum of like how to professionally network and how to attend conferences and how to develop those professional relationships with colleagues going forward. Because really that almost takes the evidence-based practice to the next level, being able to connect me with a nurse on another transport team in Boston, and we're working on this particular topic. And I think I learned how to develop those skills in EMSON, but I didn't really know that's what I was learning until I've gotten out and I've been able to kind of put some of those things into practice. But really, I think I just came out of EMSON just a phenomenally prepared nurse, ready to enter the workforce, which, like Debbie said, I'm just grateful for.
So those are some really good ideas. You know, realizing that nursing is a very difficult job and you need a lot of resilience, you need a lot of grit, and you need those networking relationships. One of the things we do try to do now is keep people in their same clinical group throughout their nursing student career so that they can form those relationships that really turn out to be very helpful in times of need. So that has worked out. It doesn't always work out because people get pregnant and they have babies and you know there's some obstacles, but for the most part, I think that has been really helpful to students. But I like that idea of learning how to network and, you know, the things that you get from going to professional seminars. So that's something we can work on. So I really thank the four of you for taking time out of your busy lives and days to reconnect with us. like I said, it's one of the favorite things I love to do is see and talk to alumni and what they're doing. And I really appreciate it. And I think everybody else is, it's very obvious now why this is probably the best job ever. And getting to be a part of the lives of such wonderful and creative and smart people. So thank you. Thank you for letting me be part of that.
Thank you so much for having us, Dr. Patton.
Yeah, your email asking us to join in on this is very exciting to get. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Well, you're very welcome.
Great. Well, I would like to heap on my own thanks, and then I'll let you guys get back to whatever you were doing today. You can get back to listening to the Frozen soundtrack, or whatever you have for the rest of the day. Seriously though, I've really enjoyed this, and I really appreciate all of you for taking some time out to hear a little bit more about what's going on at EMSON from many different perspectives. I'd like to thank in particular Brandy and everyone at the Arkansas Alumni Association, because they made this possible by inviting us. I'd like to, it can always be repeated, our thanks to Dr. Lewis and Donna Epley for all of their support of our college and EMSON in particular. And then all of the speakers today, the faculty members, as well as the alumni who you just heard from. We can tell how busy you are. And so we really we realize how even 1 hour is tremendous. And then finally, all of the faculty and staff of EMSON, because clearly you guys are really right there when it comes to combining education, research, community outreach, clinical care, and it's just very exciting to be a part of. So with all of that, thanks again for your participation, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.